One of the other ways folks can scan from an MFP back to their computer is using what's called FTP, or File Transfer Protocol. It's not as common as it used to be, but some people still use it. And today we're going to show you how to set up Scan to FTP using the free utility that Konica released some time ago, but still works pretty well. Now, you have the ability to set up an FTP site using Windows 10's IIS services, and that's more advanced, or you could use an application such as FileZilla, which is also a little more advanced than what we are interested in getting into here. We're trying to keep things real simple and get you up and scanning right away. So in this particular session, we're going to be using the Konica FTP utility, or FTP server. So you can download this application here on our site. You'll see the link below. And I've already downloaded it into my downloads folder. So I'm going to go in here to downloads, and here you see the FTP server utility. Now this is a compressed file, so what I want to do is I want to create another folder, and I'm going to call this just FTP utility. You can call it whatever you want, and I'm going to drag this file into that folder. Then I'm going to go in there and I'm going to run this. Now its default path for extraction is going to be here. That's kind of messy, so we want to keep things as clean as possible. We're going to hit browse, and we're going to browse back out to this folder that we created, which is in our desktop, or our downloads folder. So we'll go downloads, FTP utility, click OK, and then unzip. And close this. So now we have our files here. So what we want to do is we're going to install the utility, so we will click on it and run it. You can run it as administrator. In this case, you can also just double click it. It doesn't matter for what we're doing here, but it's going to begin installing the utility. And then we're going to walk through the steps. And this is fine. You can use a default directory. Okay, so when you come to this part here, register shortcut file in startup and register shortcut file on to the desktop. I normally uncheck this. The reason why is you don't really need it once you get the thing set up and running. And if you ever do have to go in and make sure it's running, you can do that by going into the menu, and I'll show you here in a minute. But you do want it in the startup. That way, when you restart your computer, your FTP utility will restart. So we're going to click Next and click Finish. And now the utility is installed. So next, we want to go and configure it. So at the top of your menu here, you see FTP utility and FTP settings. We're going to click FTP settings. And in this case, we are not going to use a specific username and password. We're going to leave it anonymous. And we're going to click Browse. And we're going to go to the folder that we want to scan to. Now, I previously had created a scans folder on my C drive. So I'm going to map out to that and click Scans. Click OK. So now all the documents that are going to be coming from the copier will go to this folder. And I'm going to click OK. Next, I'm going to launch the utility. So I'm going to go back up here to the FTP utility, click that, and I'm going to get this Windows Defender Firewall. I want to make sure that this private network is checked. Public networks is not necessary, but some folks do that. If your computer's not going to be on public networks and things like that, you don't really have to worry about that. We're going to click Allow Access. That now puts a exception in your firewall to allow communication from the copier back to the computer. Now on the bottom here you should see this little icon that says FTP utility. If you do, that means that the FTP services is running. And now the copier will be able to send back to your computer through FTP. Now a couple of things. When we go to set up the copier, and we'll cover this a little bit more in that video, setting up the copier to scan to FTP or SMB, or just copier scanning to folder. Some folks use host name and some folks use the IP address of your computer. So before we go any further, let's go back into this folder here, the scans folder. And what we want to do is we want to make sure the path of that folder, which is going to be C scans. Okay, if you share that folder off, you can go into sharing and it'll give you a host name and the name of the folder. If you copy that information, you could use that for creating the button. So your computer name is desktop here, desktop-R86C2B4. That's your host name. Now if you want to use the IP address, if you go into control panel, or actually if you just type CMD in your run box here and you type ipconfig, that's ipconfig, and hit return, it'll show you your computer's IP address. So we've got the host name here, we've got the path here, and I'm just going to go ahead and type in the IP address in case we want to use that for configuration. Now, word of caution, if you have a power outage, or if you change out your router, or you have any significant network change, your IP address can change and it will break the scanning. So you may have to come back in here, check your IP address, and then go back into the button that you create at the copier and make sure that this matches up. Okay, so you can either use the host name of your computer or you can use the IP address. All right, so we're going to close out of this and we're going to save my information here. And we're going to click OK. So that concludes setting up the FTP utility for scan to FTP or scan to folder using FTP. In this case, we're going to be using a Konica Minolta machine. So look for the video on setting up the button for scan to SMB, scan to FTP, or just scan to folder. We'll see you next time.